Olivia Bias. I go by Olive. I'm 24 years old. I'm born in West Virginia, but I go to also live in Colorado with my Sundance family. So, ecocide is a pandemic, especially from industrialization. And I feel like people here, we're finally putting our foot down and saying that it's not too late, it's just long overdue for people to finally be taking a stand against corporate interests and how that all ties into colonization. I myself in West Virginia, we have to deal with mountaintop removal to get to the coal seams. We have fracking pipelines, oil trains. We have people drink water and they get cancer. There's also even places that have to have the government ship water to them because the tap water makes people break out in rashes, makes their teeth rot out of their mouths. People a lot of the time can't even get well water. Well, the first site that we went to, they had been digging to put down the pipelines. So we went there to pray, because that's what we do when we go out there. We're not praying, we're doing ceremony. We prayed to the four directions, we had our drums. There were planes and helicopters, private security for DAPL had been following us the whole way there, which isn't anything unusual. They even fly over the camps and stuff on a daily basis. And everything was fine. We didn't have any cop interference, no National Guard or anything. But before we left, there was one of the harvest planes for the crops, the planes that have like the double layered wings, that flew over us when we were getting back to our cars, and they sprayed some sort of chemical over top of us. God only knows what it was. So after the plane flew over, we got back in our cars and we left to go to the second site, where we went. The road to get there is a county road. It's a state road, which means that it's public property. But the site where they were, this was a site where they had the pipelines above ground that go for miles. Parts of it are still in sections, and other parts they're still shaping and forming to fit into the ground, and other parts are being welded together. So this was the site that we went to. We stayed off the county road. There were no signs that said that we were trespassing, but people told us for cop interference to stay off the roads. So we were on the grass the whole time. We prayed to the Four Directions Gang, kicked off the AIM song. Other nations of people kicked off the songs of their people. And at this point, by the end of it, there was a hub of cops that were down at the end of the road for private property. I probably saw about 10 to 20 cops, 5 to 6 vehicles and vans, and these were police officers. We had probably less than 100 people at this action. At other actions, we have 150 to 200 people. But at this one, we probably had about 100 max, if that, which probably was a very strong disadvantage for us. I'm at the back of the caravan, at the end of the road, and the cops come from behind, from the end of our caravan when they're from the end of the road, and block us in from the back. And then we're trying to get the caravan moving to leave. And we saw that there were National Guard and state troopers at the end of the road that had blocked us on that side. Or they literally barricaded us, and they waited for us to get back to our vehicles. It was very strategic. Waited for us to get back to our vehicles so we could also be barricaded inside of our cars. So then they could go to each car one at a time and start arresting us. I saw one woman from my side of the vehicle. I'm on the right side of the vehicle in the back seat. I think that she was I'd say she's about 10 or 15 to 20 feet away from me. So I had a very clear view of this. There's a police officer that starts speaking to her, and I couldn't hear exactly what she said, but she wasn't hostile, and her body language wasn't passive aggressive in any way. And keep in mind, we're on public property at this point. The cop grabs her arm, manhandles her down to the ground, and two other cops get on top of her, and she has her arms behind her back. She just keeps saying, "I'm not resisting, I'm not resisting." Then I look over to the right, and 10 to 15 feet away from me, there's MRAP vehicles, which is, they're like tanks, but they're not tanks. They're armored vehicles. They're really rectangular. And they come up the road, and then there's a guy with a pump shotgun. And there was a man who was on a horse. So the man on the horse comes trotting over, and he's trying to turn his horse to the left, to turn the horse away from the National Guard that had the pump shotgun, and he points his shotgun at the horse and at the guy on top of the horse. And then there's a group of people in a circle that come over, and they're about, I'd say, 5 to 7 feet away from the cop. And everybody starts pulling out their phones to start videotaping. And there's screaming and stuff at this point. Nothing hostile to the cops, but we were scared. I started screaming out the window, "We're unarmed, we're just trying to leave." And the cop the National Guard with the shotgun is screaming at everybody, "Get back, get back." But there's nobody's attacking anybody, nobody's charging at anyone. They're all literally just standing in a circle videotaping this guy. So one girl from that group got arrested. She had a walkie-talkie and was able to fling it into our car, through our car, because we had, the doors were locked but the windows were down on the driver's side, so she threw the walkie-talkie into our car. And I don't know how the cops or National Guard didn't see that, but we were able to get the walkie-talkie back to camp. There was a cop that had approached our vehicle, and he was speaking to us, and he said, "I hope that this was worth it." And the woman, I was with two other Sundancers in the car, so we had been singing Sundance songs and praying while we were going up to the site, and they're very dear sisters of mine, and one of them said, we're doing this to protect the water. And then the cop said, "We don't give a shit." And he said, "You guys need to take another route to deal with this, send in letters or something." And I looked at him and I said, "If it were that easy, we wouldn't be here right now." And then later that cop leaves our car, and there was another police officer of some sort. They were dressed in tan and had black vests over top of them. They approached our vehicle and told us to get out of the car. There was a van in front of us where the cops started manhandling, aggressively removing people from their vehicles at this point. So it's a very false sense of security for us to be in our cars, especially when there's loaded guns 10 feet away from us that are being pointed on our people. One of the women that they pulled out of the van literally had her baby with her when we were at the action. And then there was another older man that they pulled out of the van that they had arrested. The cop that had approached us previously, who was telling us basically that we made a mistake for going out there, had asked, "Did you know that you guys were on private property?" And the driver in our car said, "I thought that this was a state road." And he said, "The road that you're on right now is a state road." But at that point, everybody was on the state road because we'd all gone back to our vehicles. We were leaving, the caravan was leaving. And he said, "But that's why you guys aren't getting arrested right now." And then after that cop had left us, that's when they started doing the mass arrests with everybody. So when another cop approached us and said we need to step out of our vehicles because we were under arrest, the driver of our vehicle said, but that guy said, she said that, but that cop said that, since we're on a state road, that we can leave. So then the police started bickering amongst themselves about if they were going to arrest us, if they could be arresting anybody, and they finally just got flustered and said, "Just go." So we were the last car of the caravan to get out, and there were 5 to 8 cars behind us that didn't make it. There were about 21 to 23 arrests. There were local reports from the police that cops had been, that they attempted a stampede with the horses against the cops. There was also local reports that we had startled cattle and that they stampeded fences down. None of this stuff is true. Nobody was violent. Nobody was hostile towards the cops. We don't even bring pocket knives out there with us. That's one of the rules that they have for direct action, is don't even bring knives with you, because we know that the media skews and says that we'll be armed protesters if we do that. They literally arrested us for standing in the grass, praying and for attempting to leave. We were able to get all the horses out that day. Both of the horse caravans were able to leave, which is good. And there were a lot of people that were able to get video and audio recordings of what happened that day. And we're definitely going to be taking people to trial, because most of the arrests that they made that day were for criminal trespassing. There were 2 people that had press badges that day that were also arrested. And I believe that they were pressed that they only just got here yesterday or the day before. They hadn't even been here that long. But there were people that were, and I also saw people that were intentionally arrested because they had their phones out. So, it's just the usual. People have to be realistic that, these cops are being paid to protect corporate interests, and that's all that's all that it boils down to for them. And they will not hesitate to use scare tactics, whether they're going to be spraying us with chemicals, or they're going to have drones and helicopters flying over the camps, or if they will pull guns out on people.